Our Lady was born as Princess Dagmar of Denmark on November 26, 1847. She was a prominent figure in Russian history, best known for her role as the Empress of Russia. She married Alexander III and became Empress from 1881 until his death in 1894. Born to King Christian IX of Denmark and Louise of Hesse-Kassel, she was part of a significant European royal lineage. Her marriage intertwined her destiny with the Romanov dynasty, and she played a vital role in the Russian Imperial court. Becoming the mother of Nicholas II, the last Emperor of Russia, whose reign ended with the Russian Revolution in 1917, she was known for her charity work, a strong sense of duty and adaptability to Russian culture and orthodoxy. She left a lasting imprint on the social and cultural fabric of Russia. Her life spanned a period of significant historical changes, witnessing the fall of the Romanov dynasty and the rise of the Soviet Union. Despite the upheaval, she remained a beloved figure among the Russian people, and after enduring the tragic murder of her son and his family in 1918, she spent her final years in exile. So join me now as we look back on the incredible life of Maria Feodorovna. Dagmar was renowned for her striking beauty. Princess Mary Adelaide of Cambridge admired her splendid dark eyes, and her fiancé, Nicholas Alexandrovich, praised her real-life beauty and expressive eyes. She also impressed Thomas W. Knox with her elegant physique and striking features. Intelligent and quick to learn, Dagmar mastered Russian swiftly after marrying into the Russian royal family, despite initially not knowing the language. Queen Victoria recognized her cleverness, considering her even more intelligent than her sister Alexandra. Fashionable and stylish, Dagmar was hailed by John Logan as the best-dressed woman in Europe, and greatly admired by the Parisian couturier Charles Frederick Worth for her inspiring style. Charming and likeable, Dagmar won the hearts of many, including Thomas W. Knox and Maria von Bock, who praised her simplicity and inborn majesty. Her grace and personal touch endeared her to those around her, with her ability to remember faces and names being particularly noted. Born on November 26, 1847, in Copenhagen's Yellow Mansion near the Amalienborg Palace, Princess Marie Sophie Frederick Dagmar, later known as Maria Feodorovna, was the second daughter of Prince Christian of Schleswig, Holstein, Sonderburg and Glucksburg, and Princess Louise of Hesse-Kassel. Baptized as a Lutheran, she was named after prominent Danish queens and grew up known as Dagmar. However, she adopted Maria Feodorovna upon marrying the future Emperor Alexander III of Russia and converted to Orthodoxy in 1866. In 1852, her father became the heir presumptive to the Danish throne, and the family was granted Bernstorff Palace as a summer residence. Despite their royal status, Dagmar and her siblings had a modest upbringing, living a simple life by royal standards and strongly emphasizing civic duties and royal responsibilities. Dagmar was incredibly close to her elder sister, Alexandra. They shared a room and received an education typical for upper-class girls, including lessons in housekeeping, arts, languages, and unusually for the time, sports and swimming. Dagmar was noted for her lively intelligence and artistic skills. Her father, King Christian IX, ascended to the Danish throne in 1863. His strategic marriages to his children earned him the moniker father-in-law of Europe. Dagmar's siblings held significant positions across Europe. Her sister, Alexandra, married the future King Edward VII of the United Kingdom. Her brother, Wilhelm, became King George I of Greece, and another sister, Tyra, became the Duchess of Cumberland. But when all seemed well, tragedy struck. Dagmar was deeply affected by the death of Nicholas. The devastation was so intense that Nicholas's parents had to remove her from his corpse physically. Returning to her native land, her profound grief raised concerns among her relatives about her well-being. Dagmar had developed a strong emotional bond with Russia, often reflecting on the vast nation she was set to call home. Her sorrow elicited widespread sympathy. Princess Mary Adelaide of Cambridge expressed sorrow over Dagmar's grief and the dark shadow cast upon her life at such a young age. Even Queen Victoria remarked on the tragedy, acknowledging the immense pain not only for poor Dagmar but also for Nicholas's bereaved parents and his bride-to-be. This period marked a significant and sorrowful chapter in Dagmar's life, deeply connecting her to Russia and its people, even in her grief. Maria Alexandrovna held Princess Dagmar in high esteem and desired her to wed their newly designated heir, the Tsarevich Alexander. Despite her initial reluctance due to her mourning for Nicholas and Alexander's romantic entanglements, both eventually warmed to the idea. Alexander II expressed his wish for Dagmar to remain part of their family, and Maria urged her prompt arrival in Russia. In June 1866, Tsarevich Alexander visited Copenhagen, and during a poignant moment over photographs of Nicholas, he proposed to Dagmar, who reciprocated his feelings. The engagement was announced later that month at Fredensborg Palace, and the couple's enthusiasm for the union grew. Dagmar left Copenhagen in September 1866 amid festive farewells, including an emotional encounter with Hans Christian Andersen. She arrived in Russia with a warm welcome and quickly adapted to her new life, converting to Orthodoxy and becoming Grand Duchess Maria Feodorovna. The grand wedding was held in November, with her brother representing her family. Maria and Alexander settled in the Anichkov Palace in St. Petersburg and enjoyed a delightful marriage, earning high regard for their devotion to each other. Queen Victoria, despite her anti-Russian sentiments, spoke favourably of their union. Their first child, Nicholas, the future Nicholas II, was born in 1868, followed by several other children. Maria had a particularly close bond with her son George, yet a more distant relationship with her daughters. The Imperial family celebrated the births of each child, marking a blend of joy and personal dynamics within the royal household. They had several children, and enduring the tragic loss of their son Alexander to meningitis in infancy, yet they were blessed with four more who reached adulthood. George was born in 1871, Xenia in 1875, Michael in 1878, and Olga in 1882. Maria was affectionate and protective of her sons, showing a fondness for George, her favourite, whom she indulged and rarely disciplined for his naughty behaviour. In contrast, she maintained a more distant relationship with her daughters. Olga and Michael, however, shared a close bond with their father. This dynamic reflected Maria's particular parenting style and the individual relationships she had with each of her children. As the wife of the heir apparent, Alexander, Maria Feodorovna often had to step into a role of the First Lady of the Russian court due to her mother-in-law's fragile health. Initially, her marriage to Alexander, following her engagement to his deceased brother, was met with disapproval by many Russians, yet she quickly won over the public, and her earnest efforts to learn Russian and understand the culture earned her enduring popularity. Maria focused her energies on the family, charitable works, and the social aspects of her position, generally steering clear of politics. However, she showed empathy during student protests in Kiev and St. Petersburg, questioning the brutal police response to loyal students. She also harboured strong anti-German sentiments, a stance influenced by Prussia's annexation of Danish territories in 1864. Diplomatically adept, Maria was instrumental in orchestrating the union between her brother George I of Greece and her cousin-in-law Olga Konstantinovna of Russia. Her father, Christian IX of Denmark, commended her for her successful efforts. Maria's relationship with her father-in-law, Alexander II, soured due to her refusal to accept his second marriage to Catherine Dolgorukov, leading to tense moments and disapproval from Alexander II. She refused to allow her children to interact with Catherine and Alexander II's legitimised children, a stance that caused significant family strife. 1873, Maria and her family visited the United Kingdom, delighting London society alongside her sister Alexandra, the Princess of Wales. The following year they reciprocated, hosting the Prince and Princess of Wales in St. Petersburg for the wedding of Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh, to the Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrovna, Alexander II's daughter. On March 13, 1881, Maria Feodorovna faced a grave tragedy when her father-in-law, Emperor Alexander II of Russia, was assassinated by a bomb attack. She vividly described the horrific scene in her diary, marking a turning point in her life and increasing her concerns for her husband Alexander III's safety. Maria and Alexander were crowned in a grand ceremony in 1883 amidst tight security due to threats against their lives. This led to their relocation to the more secure Gatchina Palace, where they spent 13 years and their children grew up. Despite the challenges, Maria Feodorovna became a beloved empress, admired for her personality, intelligence, and commitment to her people. She was deeply involved in philanthropy, patronizing numerous charitable institutions and founding schools for girls' education. She also actively participated in social events, becoming a prominent figure in the Imperial balls at Gatchina. Maria's relationship with Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna, the wife of her Russian brother-in-law, was marked by a subtle society rivalry, reflecting the tensions within the royal family. However, she maintained a good relationship with most of her in-laws and often acted as a mediator in family matters. During her annual visits to Denmark, Maria enjoyed more freedom and family time, though European leaders like Otto von Bismarck viewed these gatherings with suspicion. Under Alexander III's reign, the monarchy faced various threats, including a foiled assassination attempt and a dangerous train derailment. Despite these challenges, Maria focused on her family, particularly her eldest son Nicholas, the future Nicholas II. She initially opposed Nicholas's desire to marry Princess Alex of Hesse due to concern about Alex's character and suitability as empress. However, as Alexander III's health declined, they reluctantly permitted the union. In November 1894, Maria Feodorovna faced the loss of her husband, Alexander III, and expressed her heartbreak in her diary. Following his death, she received support from her sister, the Princess of Wales, who stayed by her throughout the funeral. Shortly after, her son Nicholas married Alex of Hesse, who became Empress Alexandra Feodorovna. As Empress Dowager, Maria was more popular than her son Nicholas or his wife Alexandra. Her appearance at Nicholas's coronation in 1896 garnered widespread applause and admiration, a testament to the Russian people's deep affection for her. Maria resided at both the Anichkov Palace in St. Petersburg and the Gatchina Palace, and she was granted Alexander III's temporary imperial train for her travel needs. She played an influential role as a political advisor to Nicholas II, initially guiding him in his decisions and ministerial appointments. Her influence was significant in the early years of his reign, but it waned as Nicholas began to rely more on Alexandra. Despite her diplomatic skills and popularity, Maria had a strained relationship with her daughter-in-law, Alexandra, whom she blamed for many of the empire's problems and her inability to connect with the Russian people. Maria frequently travelled abroad, including visits to England and her native Denmark. She supported Finland during its Russification period, demonstrating her sympathy for a Finnish autonomy. The loss of her son George in 1899 deeply affected Maria. She arranged the marriage of her daughter Olga to Duke Peter Alexandrovich of Oldenburg, a union that proved unhappy and ended in divorce. Maria faced further family challenges with her youngest son Michael's secret marriage, which caused scandal and outrage. Maria strongly disapproved of Rasputin, considering him dangerous influence on Nicholas and Alexandra. Although she unsuccessfully attempted to convince them to dismiss him, fearing the damage he was causing to the imperial family's reputation. Throughout these turbulent times, Maria remained a central and influential figure with the Romanov family and Russian society. She was known for her tact, diplomatic skills, and devotion to her family and country. In 1914, Maria was in England when World War I broke out. The war complicated her return to Russia, requiring her to travel through Denmark and Finland. Once back in Russia, she resided at Yelagin Palace near Petrograd, formerly St. Petersburg, and actively served as president of Russia's Red Cross. She continued to dedicate herself to healthcare and charitable work. During the war, concerns grew within the imperial family about Empress Alexandra's influence over state affairs and Rasputin's perceived control over her. Maria and other royal relatives attempted to mitigate Alexandra's impact and banish Rasputin. Amidst the turmoil, there were plans and discussions of a coup to depose Tsar Nicholas II in hopes of preserving the monarchy. Maria was reportedly involved in these plans, which aimed to establish her as the sole empress or appoint her as a regent for her grandson, Alexei. However, when she finally confronted Nicholas II with a request regarding Rasputin, Empress Alexandra's influence led to Maria being sent away from the capital to Kiev. In Kiev, Maria continued her work with the Red Cross and hospitals. Despite celebrating her 50th anniversary in Russia, the relationship between her and the imperial couple, particularly Alexandra, deteriorated. Nicholas and Alexandra eventually cut off contact with the wider Romanov family. Following Rasputin's murder, some family members urged Maria to return to the capital and assume a role as the Tsar's political advisor, replacing Alexandra. But Maria refused, but agreed that Alexandra's influence should be curtailed, suggesting her removal from state affairs. This period marked a critical juncture in the history of the Romanov dynasty, with Maria deeply involved in the unfolding events and family conflicts. In 1917, as revolutionary turmoil engulfed Russia, Maria experienced profound personal and political upheaval. Following the February Revolution and Nicholas's abdication, she travelled from Kiev to meet with her deposed son in Mogilev. Soon after, she realised the extent of the changes in Kiev and, under her family's advice, moved to Crimea with other Romanov refugees. While in Crimea, Maria received reports of the execution of her children and grandchildren. She publicly dismissed these as rumours, preferring to believe they had escaped Russia. Her diary and a surviving letter to Nicholas reflect the deep anguish and hope for their safety, despite the grim reality.
You know that my thoughts and prayers never leave you. I think of you day and night, and sometimes feel so sick at heart that I believe I cannot bear it any longer. But God is merciful. He will give us strength for this terrible ordeal.
Her daughter, Olga, later acknowledged that Maria lightly accepted the truth in her heart years before her death. Initially resistant to leaving Russia even after the monarchy's fall, Maria eventually relented in 1919. Departing from Crimea, she embarked on HMS Marlborough, dispatched by her nephew King George V of the United Kingdom. The voyage featured a short layover in Malta before arriving in England, where she resided with her sister, Queen Dowager Alexandra. In England, Maria felt overshadowed by her sister, the famous Queen Dowager. This sentiment and her displaced status led her to return to her native Denmark. However, she was frequently sought out by the Russian people, who still regarded her as their empress. Despite being offered the position of placeholder for the Russian throne by the All-Russian Monarchical Assembly in 1921, she declined, clinging to the faint hope that her son Nicholas might still be alive. She also supported investigations into the Tsar's family's fate, but avoided direct encounters with the harrowing details. Maria's final years were marked by the nostalgia of her imperial past and the tragic losses she endured during Russia's tumultuous transformation. The final years of Dowager Empress Maria Feodorovna were marked by a sense of readiness for the end of her life, especially after the death of her beloved sister, Queen Alexandra, in November 1925. Maria passed away on October 13, 1928, at the grand old age of 80. She had outlived 4 of her 6 children, a testament to the personal losses she endured in her lifetime. Her funeral occurred at the Russian Orthodox Alexandra Nevsky Church in Copenhagen, and her initial burial was at Roskilde Cathedral. In 2005, an accord was reached between Queen Marguerite II of Denmark and Russian President Vladimir Putin to respect Maria's wishes to be interred beside her husband Alexander III in Russia. This led to a series of ceremonies in September 2006 to transfer her remains to St. Petersburg. The funeral service, which drew significant attention, including members of European royalty, was a moment of historical significance. It was not without unexpected incidents, including a young Danish diplomat who accidentally fell into the grave. On September 26, 2006, a statue commemorating Maria was unveiled near her cherished cottage palace in Peterhof. Following a service at St. Isaac's Cathedral, her remains were laid to rest next to Alexander III in the Peter and Paul Cathedral. This final interment occurred nearly 78 years after her death and 140 years after her initial arrival in Russia, symbolically reuniting her with her husband and marking the end of a significant chapter in the history of the Romanov dynasty.